I'm gonna show you how to make the best fucking squash gratin. This is one of my favorite fall recipes, and it's also an excellent thing to have on your Thanksgiving table. All you need are Yukon Gold potatoes, a butternut squash, some caramelized onions, thyme, salt and pepper, and heavy cream. It's such a fun, relaxing thing to make. You want to make it easier for yourself. You can make this in advance. Let's get started. We're going to start by peeling the butternut squash. You can use other kinds of squash like kabocha or anything you want, but butternut's really easy to find, and its sweetness adds a really nice flavor to this. So we're going to peel this. This gratin, I'm telling you, is going to steal the show. I make it every year, and it really is always everyone's favorite. But the great thing about this gratin is that you can also make it anytime in the fall. It doesn't have to go just for Thanksgiving. You can have it with chicken or steak. It's an excellent side dish. So I'm peeling the butternut squash, and if you make sure you have a strong peeler. The peel of butternut squash is pretty dense, but if you have a strong peeler, it makes it a lot easier. We're going to slice these into really thin slices. You're going to want them to look like almost as thin as a potato chip. So see about, you're going to want them to be about that thick. I just love making this because it's so pretty in the dish. So you can just slice it up. So we're going to cut all of this, and I've already prepped some more, but you really only need one squash for your gratin. Probably you want about 3 cups of sliced squash. Now, the potato is going to be easier than the squash. The squash is the only hard part. So I'm just peeling this, and then we're going to use a mandolin. If you don't have a mandolin in your kitchen, get one. It makes making things like gratin a lot easier, and it ensures that you get an even cut all the way through, and it's faster. The only thing to keep in mind is that they're very sharp, so be very careful. But it's so helpful when you're making this. This is really the only part of the prep that's really labor intensive, and the rest is just that fun assembling in the pan, which is just really pretty, which we'll get to in just a moment after I finish. You'll notice these nice, you're gonna want it to be nice and thin like this, like a potato chip, like as if you're making a potato chip. Another reason to have a mandolin, so that you can make homemade potato chips. Yeah, I just love this. This is a go-to Thanksgiving recipe. Sometimes I just get bored with the same old dishes, and I just love that this is your potatoes and your squash in one. We all try to plan ahead for Thanksgiving. So if you do decide to peel your potatoes the day before, make sure you store them in cold water overnight. If you don't do that, they're going to turn brown and they don't look good. If you decide to cut them in advance, same thing, keep them in cold water overnight. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble this. This is my favorite part. I have 2.5 cups of heavy cream, and I have a medium-size glass baking dish. So I'm just going to put a little bit of the cream in the bottom of the pan because we don't want the gratin to stick to the bottom. I'm going to start with the potatoes because that's sort of a nice layer. And if you've ever made a gratin before, you know that you want to layer them like this. So all of it gets on the bottom. And it does seem like a lot of cream, but we're also using a lot of vegetables in this. So it's going to, when it bakes, that's what's going to keep it moist and delicious. So I'm going to put the bottom layer here. And these are really nice uniform pieces of potato. If you don't like squash, you can make this with just the potatoes if you want. Then it's just potatoes au gratin. But the squash gives it that nice fall Thanksgiving feel. It's really the best fucking gratin. I love this. Once you make this, you're going to make it every year for your family. So then we overlap it with those beautiful sliced butternut squash. And we're going to use caramelized onions, and I have a video for how to make caramelized onions that you should check out. The caramelized onions are an important factor in this, especially since we're not using Gruyere or any cheese. They give it a really nice flavor. You'll notice with the squash, because of the shape of the vegetable, you're not going to have as uniform of a shape, and that's okay. It gives it a little bit of a variety. Don't worry too much about that. So now what we'll do is sprinkle those caramelized onions throughout. And when you're doing this, just make sure that you get it all over so that every bite has a little bit of that flavor. And when it bakes, the flavors will combine and merge with each other. And we'll do another layer of cream, because that's what's going to keep it moist while it cooks. Otherwise, it would dry out. You have to have that liquid and fat in there, also for flavor. Now, there's a lot of starch in this, the potatoes and the squash, so don't hold back on the salt. The salt, it's going to need a lot of salt to flavor it, and pepper. So here we have, just to review, we put down the potatoes, well, the cream, the potatoes, the squash, caramelized onions, salt, pepper, and thyme leaf. We're going to sprinkle it with thyme leaves. Now, that is one layer of it. We're going to repeat this until we run out of room in our pan or we run out of ingredients. Either way, this will be enough for 6, 7, 8 people. I mean, it's a lot of food. So here we go, back with the potatoes. So I'm going to do as many more layers as I can fit in this pan, and we'll come back when it's done and put it in the oven. So I repeated the layers of squash, potato, caramelized onion, seasoned with salt and pepper, heavy cream to keep it moist while it's cooking. And for the top layer, I like to leave the thyme sprigs whole because it's prettier that way. Now I've preheated my oven to 400 degrees, and we're going to cook it for 40 minutes. But for the first round of cooking, you want to make sure it's covered. You can use aluminum foil. This will keep the moisture in. If you don't use aluminum foil, the moisture is going to go into your oven and it's not going to stay in the dish. So we'll cook it for 40 minutes, and then we'll take it out, remove the aluminum foil, cook it for 20 more minutes to get it that nice crust on top. Now, the great thing about this is if you want to make it the day before, you can do the 40 minutes covered the day before, and then on Thanksgiving Day, or whatever day you're cooking, put it back in to give it that crust at the last minute. Just make sure that if you do refrigerate it overnight, that you take it out and let it come to room temperature. So let's get cooking. So the gratin has cooked for an hour now. After 40 minutes, I took the aluminum foil off. So let's see how it's doing. Look at that. Those beautiful caramelized onions are all nice and dark and crispy on top. And because of all that cream, it's still really moist and soft on the inside. So depending on how many layers you did, it'll determine your serving size. But see how it's just a lovely, lovely side dish. Enjoy.